The Trump administration's deportation plans are underway, and I'm willing to bet that it's worse than you expected. Donald Trump, his white nationalist allies, and his billionaire backers have successfully created enough anti-immigrant sentiment to convince the American public that it is okay to mass deport millions of people. And now, after seizing power, the Trump administration plans on using these deportations to make America a white nation, to send people to be slaves in El Salvador, to suppress political dissent, and to most importantly, to make sure that the military-industrial complex and the private prison industry make billions of dollars throughout the process. And since money is being made, you better believe they won't care whether or not you're an immigrant when they decide to send you away. So let me give you some quick background. Throughout his 2024 campaign for president, Donald Trump repeatedly said that he intended on conducting the largest mass deportation operation in American history. To do so, he said he would use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This centuries-old law from 1798 is a wartime law that allows the president to detain and deport anybody over the age of 14 that we say is from a nation that we're currently at war with. The last time this law was used, we used it to put over 100,000 Japanese Americans in concentration camps for committing no crime at all. This is not another world war, so how is there any justification for using this law? Well, Donald Trump, the Republican Party, and the mainstream media have all helped create this false narrative that immigrants, who are just regular people coming here for a better life and a good job, are actually criminals, terrorists, thugs, and gangbangers that are coming here to steal your job and then rape and kill your family members. At each rally, Trump says that these people are coming from prisons and mental institutions and insane asylums.
They're coming from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. Like Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, insane asylums, and mental institutions from all around the world. They're emptying out, think of this, they're emptying out mental institutions from all over the world, from the Congo in Africa. They're all over the world, from Asia, from the Middle East, from South America. They're emptying their jails. Think of that. They're emptying their jails. They're emptying their mental institutions and insane asylums into the United States of America.
At the debate with Kamala Harris, he said what he always says, that many, many millions of criminals are coming into our country.
They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country, and they're now in the United States.
And it's not just the Republican Party. The Democratic Party has also played into these anti-immigrant fears. At that same debate with Donald Trump, Kamala Harris was asked about the amount of immigrants coming into our country. And her response was to say, well, I'm the only one that's prosecuted transnational gangs and cartels.
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
But people don't realize how crazy that is. Her opponent, every time he speaks, says that immigrants are the most sick, deranged, evil people on the planet. And her response is to say that she prosecutes cartels. Now imagine if we were talking about black people. And every time Trump goes out and speaks, and he says, well, black people, they're rapists and criminals and terrorists and thugs. And she was to respond, well, I prosecute Crips and Bloods. What is this conversation? Both of y'all are saying that these people are criminals when they are not. Anytime someone actually looks at the facts of the situation, when they go out and look at the data, it is clear that undocumented immigrants commit less crime than documented immigrants. And documented immigrants commit less crime than U.S. citizens. But that does not matter, because both parties have decided that immigrants are criminals that should be removed from the country. And since nobody in power was actually pushing back against this anti-immigrant racism, people have come to either despise immigrants or don't care about what happened to them at all. People have been convinced that these immigrants are actually alien enemies that need to be removed from the country. But whatever happens to them can and will happen to you. After the new administration came to power, the U.S. government removed the legal status of hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans, forcibly turning them from legal immigrants to quote-unquote illegal immigrants. The government then declared that anyone that they say is a part of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua will be labeled an alien enemy and deported without a trial. The Trump administration has been deporting these people that they say are alien enemies to the Terrorism Confinement Center, a mega prison in El Salvador notorious for its accusations of torture, slavery, and human rights violations. President Bukele of El Salvador, who calls himself the world's coolest dictator, met with our Secretary of State Marco Rubio to come up with a plan for them accepting the people that we decide to send to their prisons. And during a press conference with President Bukele of El Salvador, Donald Trump was openly saying, the homegrowns are next. And that the president of El Salvador should build about 5 more prisons to host the people we'll be sending next.
Homegrown criminals next. Yeah. I said homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right.
It's not big enough.
No, yeah.
Come on. We also have homegrown criminals that push people into subways, that hit elderly ladies on the back of the head with a baseball bat when they're not looking, that are absolute monsters. I'd like to include them in the group of people to get them out of the country, but you'll have to be looking at the laws on that, Steve, okay?
So just so you know, immigrants will not be the only ones sent to El Salvador. Let's take a look at how they decide who is an alien enemy to be sent to a mega prison in El Salvador. According to reporting from the Miami Herald and NBC News, immigration and customs enforcement agents are given personal discretion to decide who to deport based on a point system that in many ways look like the black codes that were used to put black people back into slavery after the Civil War. Scoring 8 points or higher makes you marked for immediate detention and deportation. Now, there are many issues with this list, but the most outrageous category on the list is the symbolism category. Tattoos, social media symbols, and wearing clothes like a Chicago Bulls hoodie and Jordans can all be taken as evidence of you being an alleged alien enemy. And this is despite the fact that gang experts say that trendy Arago members do not use tattoos to identify themselves. And the idea of innocent people being caught up in this is not some hypothetical situation either. Of the 238 immigrants already sent to this slave labor prison in El Salvador, about 90% of them have no criminal record. One person sent to CCOT, the mega prison in El Salvador, was a gay Venezuelan makeup artist who was deported for having crowns tattooed on his forearm. Another man was grabbed and sent to CCOT for having an autism awareness tattoo. The most famous story is the one of Maryland father and immigrant Kilmar Oberga Garcia, who just so happens to be wearing a Bulls hat at the time of his arrest. His story is the most famous because the U.S. government lawyer admitted that they grabbed him and sent him to CCOT by mistake. The government then fired the lawyer and proceeded to slander Kilmar Oberga Garcia. The White House, the Department of Homeland Security, and large portions of the mainstream media have been slandering this man as a criminal that deserves to stay in a mega prison in El Salvador. Whatever they do to you, the media will make sure to lie on your name to make it so that people don't care about what happens to you. Do not be fooled into thinking that they only plan on sending immigrants to El Salvador. And do not think that the homegrowns sent to El Salvador will only be criminals. If 90% of the immigrants sent to El Salvador are innocent, I'm willing to bet that 90% of the citizens sent there will also be innocent. And if history tells us anything, I'm willing to bet that those homegrown sent to be slaves in El Salvador will mainly be black and brown U.S. citizens. And even if these citizens are criminals, it is illegal, at least for now, to kidnap people and to send them to a foreign country to work. You cannot sell people into slavery abroad because they did a crime at home. And as history tells us about other fascist regimes, a crime will become whatever they say a crime is. And we're seeing it start now with the detainment of legal immigrant students like Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Öztürk, who were critical of the U.S.' support for the genocide in Gaza. Both of these people were grabbed by undercover agents and are now sitting in a jail in Louisiana for committing no crime at all. Later, they will be grabbing a whole lot more than just people that support the Palestinians. Later, it may include people who say that the deportations are bad. It might include black and Latino people that they say have gang connections. Maybe it will include anybody that posts or says something bad about Trump. Who knows? Just know that immigrants won't be the only ones sent to El Salvador. As is important with any policy pushed by any bourgeois politician, you gotta follow the money. Racism has lasted for so long because it pays big and is very profitable. After Trump came to power, The private prison industry was so excited and ecstatic about the idea of Trump trying to put millions of people in the concentration camps. The CEO of CoreCivic, a private prison company, said that this is one of the most exciting periods of his career. And the CEO of GEO Group, another private prison company, said that these mass deportations are an unprecedented opportunity. And we must not forget the military-industrial complex. Never wanting to be left out anytime money can be made doing violence. These mass deportations are like crack to the military-industrial complex. According to the book Wall, Barriers, Migrations, and Resistance in the U.S.-Mexico Borderlands, in 2022, the top 10 private government contractors were military contractors. And it makes sense, of course. But what may surprise you is that of that top 10, 5 of those were also immigration and border security contractors. It means that anytime you hear a politician talk about securing the border, what they're really talking about is writing another check to their friends in the military-industrial complex. A person that's wasted no time to pounce on this money-making opportunity is a man by the name of Eric Prince. Prince is a military contractor and a former CEO of the private mercenary army called Blackwater. Prince deals in death and is no stranger to violence. He has deep connections to the U.S. State Department, the Trump administration, and the El Salvadoran government. Prince met with President Bukele of El Salvador last August, and is very likely the person who came up with the idea of sending people to El Salvador's prisons. And he has now proposed a plan that would turn mass deportations into a profitable enterprise for him and his friends. He wants the U.S. government to turn 10,000 people into deportation deputies, meaning that people who were too racist to be police officers could now have the ability to decide whether or not you were sent to a mega prison in El Salvador. He also wants to make it so that his businesses are paid per person that they deport. So even if they grab you by accident, that's another $1 for them. He has also proposed a plan that will legally allow U.S. citizens to be sent to El Salvador. If his proposals are followed, his businesses will stand to gain billions of dollars. And these proposals are not falling on deaf ears. ICE Director Todd Lyons seems to be very receptive of these proposals. He himself seems to be dreaming of going around and rounding people up in trucks to ship them off to be deported. Speaking at the 2025 Border Security Expo, Lyons told the military contractors in the crowd that he wants these mass deportations to be like Amazon Prime, but with human beings. Absolutely insane thing to say, but that's where we at. In between me recording this part of the video and everything else, the Trump administration has arrested a Wisconsin judge they accuse of obstructing the deportation. The administration has also illegally and unconstitutionally deported 3 U.S. citizen children that were only 2, 4, and 7 years old. So, in this time of escalating crisis, what is to be done? The American government is coming for all of us. Immigrants are only the first. Knowing that fact, you are only left with 2 options. You can either stay silent and do nothing and let us all fall one by one like dominoes, or you can stand strong, build coalition, and stand in solidarity with your immigrant neighbor. Find you an organization or a church or a hobby so you can have a community to lean on. Deepen your connection with your family. Learn how to become an organizer. Start a union at your workplace. Learn how to build the capacity to resist and stand strong when the Trump administration comes to your community. And all of this can only be done through solidarity. It's a scary time to speak, but it's even scarier to stay silent. So you better speak out. And if you can, go out and speak with your feet. Because even if you don't care about anybody but yourself, you don't want to be left alone with nobody left to speak for you.